Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Progress Dependent in the AITA subreddit. The post is titled, "I want to stop supporting my disabled father because of his preferential treatment toward my siblings. I, 26M, have two sisters, 18 and 23, from the same mom and dad. 50. When I was 16, my parents went through a messy divorce, which resulted in my sisters staying with my mom, while I stayed with my dad. My dad is disabled and has been unable to work due to a long list of medical issues since I was 16. He has kidney failure and is currently on dialysis while waiting for a transplant. This has meant that I have been looking after him in a variety of caretaker roles for a decade now. Throughout this time, his contact with my two sisters has been minimal. He has, in the past, allowed my eldest sister to claim benefits that she was not entitled to by claiming to be a carer for my father, among others. She has at no point in her life provided care for my dad. This caused many fights between my dad and me, as I felt he was allowing her to commit fraud just so he could feel like he was helping her. I was recently contacted by his doctor, who told me that my dad was no longer on the transplant list to receive the kidney transplant he needs. Apparently, his health is now so poor that they don't know for sure if he'll survive general anesthetic for the operation. I was told that a major factor for this was his poor diet, which was exacerbating his existing health issues. Hearing this, my wife and I decided to move back in with my dad to try and get him onto a healthier diet to hopefully prepare his body for the transplant he needs. After we moved in, I was going through his most recent letters when I discovered a letter informing him that my youngest sister had applied for a grant for young carers as a result of caring for him. My dad is lucky to see my sister once a month, let alone the 16 hours a week this grant requires. I confronted him and he said he was just trying to help her out in any way he could. This again led to a massive fight, as currently my wife and I are the only family members supporting him. My sisters do nothing for him. They are both adults, and yet neither has lifted a single finger to help him. And yet here he is again, essentially committing fraud to help them out. We can't help but feel taken for granted and simply unappreciated. We do everything we possibly can for him, sacrificing our time, energy, and money to ensure he has a more comfortable life. But time and again, he chooses to focus his energy on helping my sisters cheat their way to funds and benefits they don't deserve. He's never once asked them to help him, so the burden of responsibility for his care rests entirely on our shoulders. Despite the fact that, of the three siblings, I am the only one not currently receiving any benefit related to his care. We are now at the point where we are considering pulling all our support, financial and physical, and leaving his care entirely to the two women who are actually benefiting from providing it. After about 4 years, OP returned with an update post. I remembered this post as my dad's birthday recently passed and thought I might as well give an update, even though no one asked. In January 2023, my father passed away from complete kidney failure. It wasn't a surprise to me. His health had been in decline and a transplant wasn't going to happen. The rest of the family, though, was shocked. The last time he spoke to anyone, I showed him the 7-week scan of my now 2-year-old son, his first and only grandchild. We'd rushed to get the earliest scan we could, knowing he didn't have much time. My son looked like a seahorse tadpole. He cried when I showed him, and we had a short talk about fatherhood before exhaustion took over. He fell asleep and never woke up. I asked him not to tell anyone since we were still early and didn't want to jinx it. He said, "I'll take it to the grave," and passed away 3 days later. He kept his word. I think seeing the scan and having that moment made him die happy. As for my sisters, they never changed. I let it go. I knew I couldn't change my dad, and he was on borrowed time. For his birthday that year, we rented a canal boat since he'd always wanted one. He crashed it almost immediately. They gave him less and less consideration, ignoring him completely on what turned out to be his last birthday. No visit, no call, not even a text. He was devastated and reduced contact with them, though he never stopped helping them financially. When they found out he was dying, they rushed to his side and stayed until he passed. But like before, it was too little, too late. He was already unconscious. They hadn't shown urgency when he was first admitted, only showing up when I told them he had chosen to end life support. I'd been told the day he was admitted over 2 weeks earlier that he might not survive. I believed it. I'd seen him in these situations before, and this time felt different. The rest of the family still thought he would recover and didn't treat him as a priority. Eventually, my dad asked me if he was dying. Everyone else had been giving him false hope, mostly for themselves, so I had to tell him, yes, you're going to die soon. That was not an easy conversation. He passed surrounded by family who barely gave him their time when he was alive. My sisters definitely regret how they treated him, but it's too late. We were civil at the funeral, but haven't spoken since. I scattered my share of his ashes at the end of the canal he never got to see. My sisters turned theirs into jewelry. I miss him every day, especially as his grandson looks so much like him. It's a shame things never got resolved with his daughters while he was alive, but I think he died a happy man, and that's enough for me. In the comments, a user named Dueuse said, seems like OP's dad wanted a relationship with his daughters. He tried to buy it in various ways, meanwhile taking his son for granted. He was just a desperate and deathly sick father. It's good that OP cared for him until the last, and gave him a few good moments with Baby Scan. In response, a user named Sanguinary Guard said, it's not right or just, but I am glad he chose not to fight that particular battle. Getting those final moments, I think, will end up being more important than any monetary benefit he might have been rightly entitled to, especially as more and more time passes. His problem was never with his sisters in the first place, though they sound rude. His problem was with the circumstances outside him and his sister's control that led to him growing up poor, not his sisters, and with his dad for trying to buy their attention and hurting him in the process. This next post was made in the AIW subreddit by a user named Usual Memory. The post is titled, I didn't go home after giving birth because my husband missed it to help out friends. I, 32, just had our second baby a few days ago, and instead of going home, I asked to be discharged to my sisters. I don't know if that makes me an asshole or overly emotional or whatever, which is why I'm here. Some background. My husband, 33, and I were teen parents. We had our daughter at 18 and 19. She's 14 now. It's been a long road, and we waited a long time to feel ready to go through it all again. This baby was very much planned and wanted, but ever since I hit the 3rd trimester, I've felt kind of alone in it. My husband started spending a lot of time with this couple we know. They're in a similar boat. They had their first as teens too, and just had their second recently. I get that it's a lot for them. Their oldest is 17, and they weren't planning on another, so he's been helping them out. But it went from a nice gesture to almost daily visits, grocery runs, watching their newborn while they nap, fixing stuff around their house, bringing food over, sometimes with our daughter tagging along, sometimes without even letting me know he was going. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep up with everything at home, going to appointments alone, dealing with the mess that is late pregnancy. I brought it up to him more than once, and every time, he'd either say I was exaggerating or that he was there, just not in the way I wanted him to be. He kept saying I was being territorial or weirdly competitive about them needing help, which made me question myself even more. I also started noticing changes in our daughter. She's an ice dancer and has an intense schedule, and after going with her dad to help at their house, she'd come back totally spaced out, quiet and eating less. I figured she was just tired, but it started to feel off. She almost fell during practice one morning because she was so drained, and her coach made her sit out the rest of the week. That was a big wake-up call for me. I told my husband that enough was enough and we needed to pull back, not just for me, but for her too. He apologized, said he'd keep the visits shorter, only go when it was really needed. The visits were hardly shorter, but my daughter seemed less tired, and I could actually go to sleep with my husband some nights, so I counted it as a win. When I went into labor, I called him from the car while my sister drove me to the hospital. no answer, texted, nothing. He showed up about 4 hours after the baby was born with a slushie for me, said he was sorry, but the other couple had a rough night and he didn't want to just leave them stranded. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want a big scene right there in the hospital, but when I could be discharged, I just had my sister take me home since my husband wasn't there. Now he's saying I'm being dramatic, that I'm punishing him for helping people who don't have the support we do. He told me I'm being cold and that I'm setting a bad example for our daughter by shutting him out. He's also implied more than once that I'm trying to act like a victim when he was doing what any decent person would do. His mom called yesterday and said I should be ashamed for taking the baby away. I never said anything about keeping our son from him. I've told him he can come see the baby whenever he wants. I've been texting our daughter, keeping up with her, and I plan to be back home the moment I've recovered enough. I'm not trying to split our family, I just needed a break, a quiet space to breathe and actually rest. I'm exhausted mentally and physically, but now I'm second guessing myself. Was it wrong to go somewhere else to recover? Should I have just gone home and tried to work it out there? I don't want this to turn into some drawn out fight or drama, especially not with a newborn in the picture. I don't even know if I'm thinking clearly at this point. Edit, our baby is a boy. Sorry. If you want, I can also help with improving clarity or style. Let me know. After about a week, OP created another post. Hey again, just wanted to thank everyone who commented on the original post and gave honest feedback. I wasn't in the best headspace when I wrote it, but reading through the replies, even the harsh ones, helped more than I expected, and I figured you were owed at least this small update. So about 2 days after posting, I took my daughter out of school for a few days. I had my sister bring her to her house so we could be in the same space, and I could get a better read on how she was actually doing. I didn't want to come at her all at once, so I let her rest and decompress a bit. Gave her some room to just be a kid again, sleep in, eat actual food, breathe. Then one afternoon, we were doing dishes and just chatting, and I gently asked what it's really been like at the other couple's place. I told her I wasn't mad, just that I wanted to understand. She paused for a while, then told me the truth. She'd kind of been seeing their 17-year-old son, not officially dating, but spending a lot of alone time together. She said she'd try to remind her dad it was getting late, but the boy would pull her aside and they'd end up hanging out longer. She didn't get into the details, but it was pretty clear what she meant by the way she kept blushing and looking away from me. Her being tired all the time suddenly made a lot more sense. I also asked carefully if anything felt off about her dad lately, like if he seemed out of it or was acting strange during their visits. She said not really, but that she'd smelled weed once or twice, usually when they were finally about to leave, and he was usually really sweaty at the end of it. She didn't seem too freaked out about it, but it made my stomach turn a bit. When my husband found out I'd taken her out of school and brought her to my sister's, he lost it. He accused me of trying to turn her against him and called it parental interference. Like, okay. I told him I just wanted her to rest and have some space. He wasn't hearing it. A few hours later, his mom called me yelling, saying I was trying to steal the baby, isolate our daughter, ruin the family, etc. She left this long voicemail about how I needed to bring his children home where they belong. I haven't responded. I haven't told him what our daughter shared yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to bring it up and how to press him for more details about what he himself gets up to during those visits other than what I can figure out from what my daughter said. So yeah, that's where things stand. Messy, exhausting, but a little clearer than before. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to comment and offer perspective. It helped more than you know. I'll update again if anything more happens. Edit, I'm sorry this is so jumbled. I wrote it after finally putting the baby to sleep. In the comments, a user named Apprehensive2 said, really hoping that the OP gets the daughter tested because this hits a little close to home for me with an ex-friend. I always thought something was off with her mom and then she just disappeared at 16. I saw her about 2 years later at a Ren Fest. Found out she was sent to live with foster parents. Her mom was basically pimping her while she did drugs. The 20-year-old son would pull her into his room while the mom got high and did whatever with the parents. It came to a head when the mom brought meth home and her baby brother got into it and overdosed. Her baby brother survived and that kick-started the whole investigation into what was happening. The fact that the daughter states dad is always sweaty after staying and she smelled weed. Yeah, not a good thing. Another user named Violu said, okay, well, this is distressing and I would like to skip a few months into the future so I can find out what the fuck is going through the husband's mind. This final post was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Grand Thief Bird. The post is titled, "I didn't give my money to help out my sister." Alright, this might sound like a horrible thing from the title, but please hear me out. This is a hard topic for me, and English isn't my native language, so I apologize in advance. I am an 18-year-old man and my sister is 22. Ever since we were young, she was always the priority for my parents. Don't get me wrong, they never treated me badly, but she was obviously the one they put more effort into. She would get better clothes, a better room, an allowance, and other things. While I was never treated badly, things were not as good for me. I was never given any pocket money by my parents, so I started working really early at 14, as I had learned a few skills in programming and had a good portfolio by then, GitHub, so it was easier for me to get freelancing jobs. In my country, there are some banks that allow people underage to open accounts, but they are still under the supervision of their parents. Since I started working, I became somewhat of an introvert, but that's not the point. I spent most of my adolescence working on projects. Everything I earned, I used to help out with bills at home and save the rest in my account. The reason I did that was because it is my dream to go to a specific university. It's my dream school as they have an extremely respected course in programming, and while college itself is free in my country, living isn't, and that school is in one of the most expensive cities in my country. Now, I'm finally 18 and we're in the middle of the entrance exams. I already passed the first test with flying marks and I believe the next one shouldn't be a problem either. However, since I turned 18, I'm no longer eligible for the same kind of bank account I had, which is only for minors and needed to change. My mother and I went to the bank to change the account, and during that time, she saw the amount I had saved. I won't put numbers, but it's enough for me to live without working for the duration of the course, though it won't be a luxurious life. That day during dinner, she and my father started to talk about what I want to do in the future, and I explained it to them. However, after a few moments, they stopped me in my tracks. They said that while it was all good that I had an objective, right now my sister was in financial trouble as she just had her second kid and her husband, and she could really use some help. My mother asked me to give my sister my savings and I was really shocked. I told her how much I worked for that and that it was my money and I didn't want to give it to my sister as that would mean not going to my dream college since my parents couldn't support me living there. My father said, well, you're still young and you can always earn more money. Your sister needs it. We argued more and I went to my room. However, I'm being constantly harassed and called an asshole by my family. There's so much of this that I can't help but feel like I'm a horrible person. Less than a week later, OP added a new post. First of all, I want to thank everyone who sent amazing ideas and good vibes. I can't really express how much I appreciate all of that. A few people have commented and sent me messages asking for an update. I apologize for the delay, but a lot of things happened. First, thank you to everyone who told me to change accounts and banks. While that account was already under my name alone, I took the extra step of changing banks. Now, about the whole problem with my family. After I read the replies on the post, I knew I wasn't in the wrong and decided to confront my parents about it. I told them I was not going to give up my dream, especially since I worked so hard to achieve it. That escalated our conflict, especially after they found out I changed banks. It all culminated with my parents kicking me out of their house. I expected them to be angry, but I never expected that kind of overreaction. Regardless, I can't really cry over spilt milk. I managed to find a friend who allowed me to stay at his house for a few days, and that's the reason I haven't updated this sooner. I stayed for a few days and decided it was time for me to move to the city where I hope to attend college. Now, I have found an apartment and already moved cities. I will need to find work for now, as currently I don't have a roommate. I was hoping to find one once college started. To be honest, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing right now, but that's something I'll have to learn. I changed all my documents and especially the place where I'll be taking the second stage of the entrance exam, so all I can do now is wait and see what the future has in store for me. For those who asked about my sister, I contacted her after I was kicked out and explained the situation. She was mortified and told me that she never once asked our parents for help or money. She said she was indeed tight on money, but nothing she and her husband couldn't handle, and she would never accept my money. Just to make sure, I have absolutely no resentment toward my sister. While we did grow apart once she got married, she is still my sister. I believe she didn't really have anything to do with my parents' behavior, and I'm very thankful for that. I absolutely adore my niece, and I'm looking forward to meeting my nephew one of these days. Anyway, my parents still very much think I'm an asshole and an ungrateful child. They're still sending messages and stuff like that. I'm just ignoring it for now, but I can't say it doesn't hurt to see my own parents say things like that. Well, anyway, I just want to thank you all once more for everything. Stay safe, everyone. In the comment section, a user named Nerdmania said, parents lost their son over support for the golden child who didn't even want the support. Under this comment, a user named Jittarao said, it sounds like that's the excuse they came up with, but based on what the sister said, it's tough not to think they were really trying to pocket at least some of that money for themselves. Then another user named Turuyal said, I was not expecting that twist. Considering the time that had passed, I think the OP was right to believe that his sister wasn't in on it, which kind of makes everything worse. They were going to rob their son of a future he worked hard for over years, for a person who wouldn't have taken it. I'm glad OP is still not in contact with their parents. I'm glad he has succeeded in his life, even if his parents aren't. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.